Hello and welcome to this Tech Unplugged videocast. I'm Max Montilaro and today I'm joined by Venkat Ramakrishnan. Hello Venkat.
Hey Max, happy to be here.
So Venkat, thank you very much for this interview. You're working with the Portworx division of Pure Storage, is that correct?
Yes.
Fantastic. So Venkat, we are at Kubecon, we're live at Kubecon, and I know that very recently you had some interesting, exciting announcements. Can you tell me maybe a bit more about that?
Perfect, yes. First of all, it's a fantastic KubeCon. Very happy to be here. There's tremendous excitement that's with the people visiting the booth and just talking to the community members. It looks like we're kind of back with a bang after the pandemic, and it is so good to be around people that are like-minded and doing a lot of great stuff in this space. So we have made 3 major announcements today that Portworx by Pure Storage that made today. We announced the general availability of Portworx data services, which is a single-click database as a service deployment for any Kubernetes cluster, any database. Of course, we are starting with about 6 databases that we have curated, but eventually it will expand to any database on any infrastructure, cloud or VM or bare metal. Right. The second announcement is our backup-as-a-service, Portworx Backup-as-a-Service. So Portworx Backup is today the leading backup software for Kubernetes and multi-cloud and cloud-native deployments. What we have done is we have taken our experience in running giving our on-prem software where customers are running, and we have simplified the deployment and now offering it as a service, as a SaaS, that customers can register their Kubernetes cluster to and start backing them up with a few clicks, and they don't have to manage their backup software infrastructure. It is managed and serviced by Portworx. The third big announcement, which I'm also very excited about, is the announcement about our next generation software stack and architecture, our version for Portworx Enterprise, which is our flagship data management software for Kubernetes, and it is the #1 leading data management and storage software for Kubernetes, right? And that's Portworx Enterprise. And we announced a new high performance edition of Portworx Enterprise. It's called PX Fast. So can deliver more than 1.5 million IOPS per server. Portworx is a scale-out architecture, can do a lot more when you scale it out. We also announced scale-out object service in Portworx Enterprise that can provide object provisioning and bucket provisioning through our Portworx control plane and kind of be able to integrate different kinds of object stores into the object service, and also things like IPv6 support, right, for like Kubernetes and edge deployments and 5G deployments, as they proliferate and kind of have IPv6 support that's going to be available, and a few other enhancements and features that you will see later part of this year.
Okay, so thank you for that first batch of announcement. It's a pretty comprehensive one actually. So before we jump into each of these, there's one which stands out to me, and that's the announcement about the backup data protection as a service.
Yeah.
I think it's something really interesting. It's a really interesting one because containers were supposed to be a stateless thing, and now it's stateful, and we need to protect them and so on. Can you maybe tell us a bit more about digging into that? What's the added value for organizations?
Yeah. So containers being stateless, I think it's a myth, right? And many people talk about that, but what are containers essentially? They're building blocks of applications, and there is no real application without data, right? Now, where do you put the data is the question of where the containers, when they say, containers are stateless, is, because, people say, okay, I can put my data in a managed service, right, from my favorite cloud provider, right? Or I can put my data in an object store or, like in a Filer, right? But the nature how containers and the containerized apps are built and how Kubernetes infrastructure run by Kubernetes and managed and operated through via Kubernetes, it requires a new paradigm, a new way of doing, building applications and data, and it is the future, right? And it is what is being built now. Almost all modern apps are now running on Kubernetes, right? So when you run applications and when you deploy these apps on any of the infrastructure, you have to be very cognizant of how you manage your data, right? And many times our customers want to control where the data is running. They want to have visibility into their data, how the data is running, and they don't want to pay extra charges for storing data and retrieving data and pay traffic costs and all of that. They want to have more control over the cost of the data that they have to manage. So naturally, containers are also supporting stateful workloads because they don't want to outsource their data to some third party or some an external hardware, but they want it to be co-resident with their apps and manage it along with their apps. And the move to stateful apps is because of a very simple customer need. Customers want to manage their app and data lifecycle together, right? They want them to be protected together. They want to have a knowledge of where they are together. They want to plan for them together, right? So yes, because of that, you see a ton of stateful applications like data services, messaging apps, and everything are now running in Kubernetes. So the moment you start running your mission critical apps in Kubernetes infrastructure, now question about how do we protect them? What are we doing to restore them in the case of a failure or like an unexpected incident? So data protection becomes extremely necessary and critical, and we have seen a lot of customers now adopting all the way from they're running their critical business infrastructure on Kubernetes, running their applications at Kubernetes, and putting their data in Kubernetes infrastructure. They want to make sure they can recover from any incident. So it has become crucial that customers are looking for a highly secure, multi-tenant, a multi-cloud backup architecture that they can run anywhere they want and be able to protect their Kubernetes cluster. Now, when we take that and servicize and provide that as a SaaS, we have now simplified their ability to, they simplified their ability to back up these Kubernetes clusters, right? It's few clicks, they can point it to any Kubernetes cluster, and voila, they're automatically protected. Right?
So that makes a really good plug actually, because you talk about SaaSifying data protection, but you're also SaaSifying database deployment, right? So
yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about that as well?
Perfect, yeah. So the other big pain point, or what you see with customers is that, and our users is, many of our users are prolific platform administrators. They can build these high scale out and highly scalable infrastructure very quickly with Kubernetes, right? But they're by nature of that, they are now enabling a lot of people to bring their applications and a lot of the developers to bring their apps and databases into this infrastructure. But not all of the platform administrators are database administrators, and not all database administrators are Kubernetes platform administrators, right? So by providing Portworx data services, we're enabling these two communities to be able to very quickly and securely, safely onboard their data services and databases into Kubernetes, right? And by doing so, we're making it so simple to run these databases in Kubernetes, and we manage with Portworx data services. It's a single click deployment. You can select from a list of curated databases that we have curated them, tested them, qualified them, and customers can point that to their Kubernetes cluster and they can deploy it with a single click. And from then on, Portworx data services takes care of all the day-to-day management of running the databases, or if there is a failure, how do you recover from the failure? The PDS service manages that,
Yes.
including high availability, data protection. It regularly backs up those databases, and it shows this like the list of backups for each database is available, and it also monitors the infrastructure for capacity, full conditions, and automatically resizes the infrastructure, the volumes, to handle those kind of scenarios where a database can quickly run out of capacity, but PDS autonomously manages that. So essentially, our goal, our vision is to bring autonomous management for any database on any cloud, on any infrastructure, right? And that is what PDS is all about.
And I think that's one of the key differentiators we're seeing when we kind of look at what Portworx offers compared to some of your competitors. The overall breadth of the vision, the scope, the fact that you deliver enterprise-grade capabilities. I think it's one of the great for me takeaways when talking about Portworx. But on to some new announcements as well. Portworx peaks fast, if you call it like that.
Yes.
For me, that's an entirely new one. I mean, I didn't know at all. So can you maybe dig a bit more deeper in a couple minutes into that?
Yeah. So the Portworx Fast, or PX Fast as we call it, is it actually comes from listening to a lot of our customers. And like in the evolution of any new technology, it goes through several phases, right? I mean, initially you're trying to adopt it, and then you're trying to kind of run it, safely in production, and then you're trying to then kind of figure out, okay, what are am I protected against any failures, and how do I restore? Then you start talking about how do I optimize it in my infrastructure? How do I onboard more apps? And how do I even bring in even more high frequency or high performance apps into this infrastructure? And when we looked at all of that, it became evident that we need to come up with a new edition of Portworx that delivers unprecedented performance, right? At low latencies and high throughput, that helps the customers with a few things. Number one, it delivers millions of IOPS in a smaller footprint, right? So the Portworx Fast Edition can deliver up to 1.5 million IOPS per server, depending on if you have the NVMEs that can deliver that level of performance. And because Portworx is a scale-out architecture, now you can just scale it out with multiple servers at that level. Now suddenly, let's say you have 10 servers doing that in a single storage cluster, Kubernetes cluster, you can now deliver 10 million IOPS. And you can, because Portworx, you can be stretched across multiple Kubernetes clusters. Multiple Kubernetes clusters can take advantage of the Portworx cluster that's delivering that many performance. So you also enable high performance. You're now lowering the footprint at which these performances are delivered for these apps, and you also save a ton of money in everything else in your data center footprint. Plus, you're enabling people to increase the density of the containers, the number of containers they can run in an infrastructure. Right?
So the interesting thing there is that it's how it plays with the entire pure storage story of delivering performance, scalability, and so on. So that's really great and impressive that we're getting into that as well with the world of containers as they democratize, as people kind of acquire, as you say, they understand the value and know they want to kind of squeeze out their investment to get the performance they need. But I'd like to move to another topic.
Sure.
We're at Kubecon, and it's always the place where things happen, where the announcements happen, and where we see new trends emerging. So, very briefly, what has caught your attention? I know that you've been very busy, but in general, some trends that you're seeing in the cloud native world, where you think that Portworx may be a differentiator and so on.
Sure. I think one of the few things that are happening is if I generally talk about the trends in the industry and some that I see here. So I think some of our kind of predictions are coming true, right? Is first, I think it is becoming more and more important for customers to kind of go into this multi-cloud era, right? So they want to build and run apps that can run in any cloud, right?
Yes.
And that is, and they're trying to, their tech stacks are looking to achieve that, number one, right? And talking to more customers here, what I'm realizing and what it's becoming evident is edge is becoming a very, very important use case. A lot of customers have needs that where there's either hundreds of thousands of servers or millions of devices that they are anxious about managing in edge, and all of them are actually running on Kubernetes, right? So edge is an important use case. And the other thing is security, right? And they are constantly looking to see how they can secure their infrastructure, their applications, their data, and how they can protect it. So ransomware, ransomware is already an IT concern. We also see that becoming a platform administrator concern.
Yes.
So when we released Portworx Backup, which we announced today, Backup-as-a-Service, it's based on Portworx Backup 2.2, which already comes with a ransomware protection, right? So when we describe that to customers and say how they can protect their clusters against any ransomware attacks and how do they recover from them, they're like, well, this is exactly what we were looking for, right? So that is on top of the mind for them, right? The fourth thing is continue to the ease of operations, right? I mean, for example, what we did with Portworx Data Services is we started with a set of databases. Of course, we'll expand that. We're telling them, here is a few easy steps for you to deploy these databases in your infrastructure, right? So when I talk to customers, they're also looking for something similar. It resonates with them. The reason is as a, most customers have major Kubernetes initiatives. They have re-platformed their infrastructure. They have modernized their application infrastructure. They cannot leave a few applications back in VMs. They cannot leave a few applications back in just bare metal, because now they are kind of like, they have to manage different islands of infrastructure. So they want to bring kind of everybody together, right? So like offering solutions that simplifies and helps them migrate even the outliers in the remaining ones, or even things that they thought originally like databases that cannot easily run in Kubernetes. When we help them bring it over and then run it, that simplifies their world a whole lot, makes their lives a lot better. So they are looking for tools that continues to simplify their Kubernetes experience and scale their clusters easily, secure them better, right? So those are the few trends I see. Just talking to our customers and walking around some of the Expo Hall area and listening to some of the talks.
Well, Venkat, thank you so much for these very insightful comments here at KubeCon. Is there any last comment you want to provide before we close with this interview today?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure talking to you and sharing my thoughts and what I feel like is the industry trends. And of course, I'm always excited to talk about our product announcements. Thanks to the great work of all of the entire team of engineers and everybody working on it, plus the team that sells and supports it. But more importantly, I think we are at the cusp of something much bigger, right? I always say this is a decade of the Kubernetes, right? This is a decade of Kubernetes. If last decade was a decade of cloud, this decade is a decade of Kubernetes, and we are only at the beginning of very interesting use cases.
Absolutely.
Right, and this is a space. This is an entire industry that Pure and Portworx we are very committed to, and we are dreaming big in how we can solve bigger and better problems for our customers. And I think in the next few years, you will see that this dramatically revolutionizes how people have built their apps, run their infrastructure, and it's going to open up a lot more interesting use cases for us to go solve, right? So I'm very excited for the future. I'm very happy to be here, and it's so happy to meet people face to face and share some thoughts. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Venkat. And for all of you watching us, thank you very much for your time, and we'll see each other, and we'll see also our friends at Pure Storage and Portworx at Pure Tech Fest 22 in Los Angeles. Thank you.